Mack's life was turned upside down just days ago after his wife, Charity Dingle, admitted she had slept with Ross and later gave birth to his baby. She also confessed that Dr. Todd had blackmailed and sexually assaulted her. Despite feeling devastated by the betrayal, Mack has decided to stand by Charity and support her as the police continue their investigation into the corrupt doctor. Speaking about where Mackenzie and Charity's relationship currently stands, Lawrence Robb explained, "I think they're probably just covering over the cracks for now. Mack doesn't really have the chance to deal with everything because his first instinct is to protect Charity. Whether those emotions come back later remains to be seen, but he hasn't had the opportunity to process everything properly. On top of that, Sarah and Jacob still don't know the truth. Eventually, that secret is bound to come out. It's really down to the writers and producers to decide when that happens and what the fallout will be." One of the biggest challenges for Mack has been acting as though nothing has changed whenever Ross is around. Mack feels completely betrayed by Ross, Lawrence said. They had become close friends, so discovering that Ross had known about Leyla all along cuts deeply. Mack may be able to understand Charity's actions because he loves her, but accepting Ross's role in everything is much harder. There's a huge amount of anger aimed at Ross, not simply because Charity was unfaithful, but because Ross is actually Leyla's biological father. However, Mack can only keep his emotions bottled up for so long. As another week begins in the Dales, his frustration finally reaches breaking point. Ross is persuaded to head to a barn at Emmerdale Farm, where Mack asks him to lend a hand with some work. In a newly released preview clip, Ross quickly realizes something feels off. It becomes obvious that Mack never really needed help shifting the bags. Instead, Mack claims he just wanted an excuse for them to spend time together, since they rarely do anymore. The conversation is tense, leaving Ross increasingly uneasy. Before long, Mack's anger explodes, and he lashes out at Ross over everything that has happened. The confrontation takes place on the barn's mezzanine level, where a single forceful shove from Mack could send Ross crashing to the ground. Ross is left fighting for his life, but what happens next remains to be seen. Emmerdale viewers have been left guessing about Serena Sugden's real motives after the newest resident made a mysterious impression in the ITV soap. Serena, portrayed by Casey Al-Shaksi, arrived in the village last month as a previously unknown member of the Sugden family. She is the granddaughter of Jack Sugden's cousin, making her a distant relative of Robert Sugden. Explaining that she was homeless and without work, Serena sought help from her relatives in the village after arriving. Since then, she has been welcomed into Sarah Sugden's home, while Charity Dingle offered her a job behind the bar at the Woolpack after sharing details of her own recent struggles. Despite settling into village life, Serena has continued to raise eyebrows with her unusual behavior. In recent episodes, she has been asking probing questions about her late cousin John Sugden, the serial killer, as well as his victim, Nate Robinson, both of whom she claimed to have known. During Friday's episode, Serena questioned Moira Dingle while serving her at the Woolpack, once again trying to learn more about Nate. Moira immediately became wary of Serena's interest and refused to answer, leaving the pub rather than continuing the conversation. Fans quickly took to social media to speculate about Serena's true intentions and who she might really be. One viewer wrote, "I think Serena is a journalist." Another replied, "She's asking far too many questions, and how does she already know what happened to Nate?" A different fan commented, "She never stops asking questions. I think she's definitely hiding something." Another viewer suggested, "She seems capable of fitting into lots of different situations, which is exactly what a journalist working undercover would do." Someone else agreed, writing, "She's far too interested in John Sugden. I think she's either a reporter or writing a book about him." The speculation comes after Emmerdale producer Laura Shaw spoke about Serena's arrival, saying, "The Sugdens are a vital part of Emmerdale, and we're delighted to welcome Casey to the family." Kev Townsend may have unexpectedly found someone willing to stand by him in Emmerdale, potentially securing his future in the village. The character looked set to leave this week. After Friday's episode saw him accused of a crime he insisted he didn't commit. Lewis Barton and Nicola King were horrified after discovering their cafe had been vandalized and cash had been stolen. Suspicion immediately fell on Kev, but he strongly denied any involvement. Kev quickly realized someone had deliberately framed him, although viewers didn't learn who was responsible until later in the episode. It was eventually revealed that Nicola had orchestrated the entire plot, with Ross Barton helping her carry it out. The pair believed they were acting in Lewis's best interests and wanted to drive Kev out of the village once and for all. While Lewis became convinced his father was guilty and a heartbroken Kev desperately tried to clear his name, Nicola and Ross secretly knew they were the real culprits. However, they weren't the only people aware of the truth for long. Feeling confident their plan had worked, Ross couldn't resist bragging about it to the worst possible person. After celebrating the apparent success of their scheme with Nicola, Ross later visited Mack Boyd and openly admitted what they had done. Mack listened in disbelief as Ross described the robbery and explained that Lewis had ordered Kev to leave the village. Only days earlier, Mack had shared an emotional conversation with Kev, who had spoken about wanting to rebuild his relationship with Lewis. Because of that conversation, Mack was convinced Kev would never jeopardize his chance of reconnecting with his son by stealing from his business. It didn't take long for Mack to realize Ross had framed Kev, and he immediately confronted him over it. Mack was clearly disgusted by Ross's actions, with his reaction also fueled by his own unresolved anger towards him. Mack had recently discovered that Ross and his wife, Charity Dingle, had secretly slept together months earlier, resulting in Charity becoming pregnant. Earlier this year, Charity gave birth to baby Leyla, but falsely claimed the child belonged to her granddaughter Sarah Sugden. Charity had agreed to act as Sarah's surrogate, leaving Sarah convinced that Leyla, the baby she is raising with her husband Jacob, is her biological daughter. Only a handful of people know that Leyla is actually the daughter of Charity and Ross. Ross remains unaware that Mack has uncovered the truth, so while he was proudly boasting about ruining Kev's chances of reconciling with Lewis, Mack saw an opportunity for revenge. Mack tracked Kev down before he left the village and urged him not to give up. He then revealed that Ross had confessed to helping Nicola frame him and explained that the pair had deliberately targeted him to force him out. Although furious after hearing the truth, Kev was encouraged by Mack to stay and fight for the chance to rebuild his relationship with Lewis. Mack convinced him that the truth would eventually come to light, leading Kev to abandon his plans to leave the village. The unexpected bond forming between Mack and Kev has surprised viewers, especially after their recent conversations. It also raises the possibility that Mack could become Kev's strongest ally in the weeks ahead. Having already exposed Ross and Nicola's deception to Kev, Mack may now decide to go one step further. If he tells Lewis who was really responsible for trashing the cafe, it could finally clear Kev's name while exposing Ross and Nicola's betrayal. Emmerdale is broadcast on ITV1 every weeknight at 8 p.m, with episodes also available to stream from 7 a.m. on ITVX and YouTube.